Disney's position is probably the right position, which is they're performing well and safely here in Orlando, Florida, and in Shanghai, and we're up until a few weeks ago in Paris. So, I think their position is if we can do it in those locations, if we can still do the numbers, the reduced capacities, the measures and the protocols, then why can't that translate to Southern California? So I think their position is strong. They demonstrate it every day in these parks here in Central Florida. So I can see where they are coming from in their pushback.
And do we have, pretty good evidence and study of the experience there in Florida in terms of, obviously the demand is there for the limited capacity that the parks are allowed to have right now, but that in fact there have not been incidents attached to those?
No, there really hasn't. And I think that's the success story that it's being demonstrated here. And I think that's the challenge that any other state that wants to remain closed, particularly in the outdoor themed entertainment industry, has to respect the fact that this is working well here in Central Florida. We've been open for a while. The demand is growing, even though the capacity controls are still in place. So it is a great little test site for what can happen if you operate correctly and respect the disease for what it is, but also understand how you can operate safely.
Bill, I feel like the elephant in the room in this earnings period, which did come in better than expected, and they're managing obviously very well despite some of the park closures, is the tremendous amount of layoffs that Disney has done, including the 28,000 in the most recent wave. How much do you think that is helping the company financially, and what happens down the road for Disney when the parks ultimately do reopen to those workers?
Well, the good news is they will reopen, and they'll reopen, back to where they were before. And hopefully when Central Florida picks back up and we're getting our 60 million visitors back to this part of the world, all those people will be reemployed, and Disney is, I would suspect, handling this the best way they can for both sides of the table. They want to make sure that their operation is sustainable, but they also want to make sure that the employees are aware that they are going to be back, and when they are back, they're going to be looking for them to come back to the parks again.
Bill, it's easy to forget that before COVID, we were talking a little bit about the $1 billion that Disney had spent on park technology, which is clearly now coming in handy, especially this week when Ticketmaster says it's working on a framework where you would use your smartphone to verify that you've been vaccinated and that you've tested negative for a certain hour period. I assume that's going to fold right into their tech infrastructure over time.
Sure it will, and not only them, but this is going to turn into standard procedures for any major venue like this. So we shouldn't just consider theme parks the only people that are going to look at that technology. Any outdoor major high-capacity attraction, maybe even stadiums and such, are going to start having to pay attention to this. And I think this is not only going to be domestic with the smart guys like Disney, but it'll continue to expand around the world. So technology is one of the solutions for this challenge, and I think they're just a little bit ahead of the game right now.
As a park operator right now, Bill, would you go along with the premise, as you suggested earlier, that there will be a fully back to normal moment out there, not too distant future, including things like international tourism volumes and all the other things that used to sustain these parks?
Well, it's kind of a difficult question. I think there'll always be this thing called the new normal, but I do think I have to believe, because we're in this industry, and we believe that the theme park, the destination attraction business will return, and it will return in probably even greater than it was before, because the pent-up demand will have to be met. So I would suspect there is a date, as you say, out there in the future where we will look back and say, that was a difficult time, but we're close to being back to normal or even ahead of schedule in some places of the world.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.